Fifth Hour Radio Show.
Lucinda, do you mind sharing with our listeners a brief history about yourself as to why you chose journalism for your career? What was it about that field that excited you so much to devote your life to it?
I fell into journalism accidentally because I wanted to write a novel in my garret when I graduated from college, but instead I got a job as a coffee girl with United Press International in London, a place I'd always wanted to go. And I was finally, the only way I could get off getting coffee was to get my own stories. So I happened to be in Northern Ireland when Civil War broke out there back in the 70s, and I was hit with a club by a Protestant bully boy, and blood, a scalp wound is very superficial. I'm very not serious, but blood came down, and there were pictures taken. They were wired over to London. My boss got a hold of me and said, "What are you doing in there? Women are not allowed in war zones in United Press International. Get back here." And I said, by the time I get that back there, boss, the story will be over. And by the time you send a man to replace me, there will be no story. So that was how I got my start. And it really did become very exciting. Dodging bullets and bombs in Northern Ireland was just the beginning of it. But, interviewing people like the Prime Minister of Israel, Ariel Sharon, a real character, and Tony Blair and Gorbachev, and then recently Hillary Clinton. It was, just
an amazing
very,
ride, huh? An amazing ride.
An amazing ride. Exactly. And then I won the Pulitzer Prize for going into the underground, the Weather Underground, which was a radical terrorist group that came out of the anti-war movement, and they bombed empty buildings, but they blew two of themselves up in a bomb factory that they'd made out of a townhouse in Greenwich Village, and I was assigned to go underground and find out what this group was and who this woman that blew herself up by leaving the detonator caps on the dynamite. And Diana Oughton, exactly. And that got me the Pulitzer Prize, and that got me a calling card into the New York Times, which got me a calling card into the New Yorker. And, I was writing the kind of things I always wanted to write. Long, novelistically told, factual articles.
So we're here today to discuss your latest book, Timeless Love, Morgenthau and Me, detailing your marriage to, and I'm going to use the term legendary here, attorney Robert Morgenthau. And I suppose my first question concerning the book is, what was the inspiration for writing the book and sharing your life together with everyone?
Well, Robert Morgenthau, my husband, is unarguably one of the great men of our time. The only one that's left over from the Kennedy period, the real statesman that we don't have anymore. And his father was Secretary of the Treasury under FDR. His grandfather was ambassador to Turkey and stopped the Armenian genocide in Turkey, or blew the whistle on it. And he comes from a long, distinguished Jewish family, and he has really distinguished himself with new legal precedents, inventing the prosecution of white-collar crime, stopping terrorism, a number of terrorist cases he's had that have been very successful. He even warned the FBI. He had information that told him that 9/11 was going to happen. He warned the FBI, and the FBI didn't pay any attention to him.
Mm-mm-mm.
So he really is a very unusual person. And he has a very staunch, tough, reserved exterior, the prosecutorial human being. And nobody knew him because he'd never gone public before about his personal life. Nobody knew him as a whole person. And I knew that he didn't belong just to me, but that he belonged to the people in all his humanity. So I wanted to record that.
I've read that Mr. Morgenthau has been approached for years to tell his story, and for years, he refused. How did you get him to change his mind? Was he just waiting on you to do it?
No, I don't know. He's very opaque. He does not tell his feelings or sometimes his real reasons for doing things. But I suggested it with great fear and trepidation, and when he said yes, I was shocked. And he later explained this, saying, the only way I've been able to function is to never look back. And I didn't want to look back with a perfect stranger, a publisher. I knew you knew most of it anyway, so I didn't have to do the work.
There's quite a few years separating you and Robert in age. How did you two meet and eventually, fall in love?
Well, I went to interview him when I was assigned the Watergate story at United Press International. He had just been fired as U.S. Attorney. Who JFK had appointed him as U.S. Attorney, and he was looking into the Swiss bank accounts of Nixon and his cronies, and Nixon fired him when he became president. So he was a perfect person to know about what was happening, with Nixon's closest advisors and their Swiss bank accounts. And I asked so many detailed questions of him, because I really didn't know anything about any American government or institutions. I was pretty young, and he was shocked that I didn't know, and I was asking so many questions, and he thought I was either the dumbest or the smartest reporter he'd ever met. When he read my story, he decided I was the smartest and began to pursue me.
Was there opposition to the marriage just because of the age difference?
Well, let me say this. It was as though the Pope had asked Squeaky Frome to marry him. His family, couple of his daughters were my age. His cousins were very territorial about him. One of them wrote him that he should see a psychiatrist before he married me. My radical friends and I war friends were saying that I'd sold out to the establishment. I mean, we were like Romeo and Juliet, except a horrier version, and which brought us closer together. And we just went out and eloped. So it's been totally wonderful. I mean, marrying somebody 30 years older than you would think would be a disaster. And I fought it for a long time. I thought it was going to be a disaster. But we haven't noticed the age difference between us for a long, long time. I mean, only recently when he's really gotten older. He's 95 now. But in perfect health and perfect mental health, that works and does op-ed pieces. He's great fun, and he acts goofy, and he tells jokes, and he helps me with my stories, and he's great. We don't do some of the things we did when he was younger, but we have other things that have taken the place.
Mm-hmm. Now, being what I would consider a power couple, you two, I'm sure, faced obstacles that other married couples wouldn't face. I mean, you see so many married couples that are in the spotlight last maybe a few years and even months.
Mm-hmm.
And the position Mr. Morgenthau was in had to be so stressful at times. Is he the type of person that could leave work at work when he came home at night?
No, He brought his work right with him. He's a person that doesn't work to live; he lives to work. And but he brought them to me. I mean, I had a full life when I married him. I'd won the Pulitzer. I'd gotten a certain amount of recognition. He wasn't going to let me give up my career to be Mrs. Morgenthau.
Mm-hmm.
He urged me to continue with my career, and I helped him with his as he helped me with mine. We would play act certain cases, like the subway vigilante Bernard Getz case,
Mm-hmm.
which happened a long time ago, because the city was split on that. There was so much crime. And we play acted the victim and the perpetrator until he finally decided exactly what he was going to do, that he was going to indict Bernard Getz for shooting these 4 teenagers, shooting at them. So we've always shared this kind of thing, and sometimes it's put great stress on the marriage and on our children that we've had together because of the terrorism cases he's taken. I mean, we've had dogs accompanying the kids to school and sniffing their friends' backpacks. Our mail opened, our packages tested for anthrax, and we've had a lot of death threats, which has been, those have been tense times.
Mm-hmm. And I also understand Mr. Morgenthau suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. At what point did you realize this was affecting him?
Well, there was a trauma that happened to me, a near disaster, and my husband acted very, very strangely when this happened. He moved away mentally and emotionally in a way that he had never had before. And it became so painful for me, his lack of support, and so totally unusual, that I consulted a therapist, and she was the one that pointed out, Laura Pancucci, she pointed out that he might have post-traumatic stress syndrome. He had several shocks in his life, one of which was very similar to what was happening to me. And he just went into high functioning, total blocking out of all feelings, hiding feelings even from himself. And that's how he expressed his PTSD. And that indeed is how 70% of the population they're not soldiers. 70% of the PTSD sufferers are not soldiers. The small percentage are soldiers, and most people who suffer from it are like you and I, or you and me.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mr. Morgenthau has spent a great deal of time supporting other veterans, right, suffering from PTSD as well. How do you all do that?
Yes. Well, after he was diagnosed and he realized he had it, and we talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, which is the way you alleviate, if not cure, post-traumatic stress syndrome, is you talk about the traumas you've had. He decided he wanted to talk to everyone about this, about his traumas, his shocks, his post-traumatic stress syndrome, how it manifested itself, and he felt he could help fellow sufferers, particularly soldiers who were not getting any treatment. The VA is just overwhelmed and has not helped these guys. And so my husband has lobbied Congress, written op-ed pieces, met with hospitals to set up nonprofit organizations that will help the soldiers that are suffering from Iraq and Afghanistan that are suffering from PTSD.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we get off here, I got to talk a little bit on how Mr. Morgenthau is tied in with Law and Order. Were there actual cases modeled after his cases on the show? I mean, I hear that he was the inspiration to the show.
He was the inspiration for the show, and for at least the first season, every single show was modeled on one of his cases. And that's your short answer. He met with Sam Waterston and with the producer and the director and the creator. Met with everyone for long sessions, briefed them on how to act as a prosecutor acts, and they spent days with him watching him. He opened some of his files to them, the ones that were less sensitive, and really it was like watching ourselves transmogrified onto the television set.
Well, that had to be really neat. That had to be neat, though.
It was neat, particularly when he retired, and we were sort of at sixes and sevens for a small period of time, and so we took solace by watching Law and Order.
Now, being we have such a short time frame for an interview, there's no way possible, I can cover every aspect of everything that this book offers. So I'm going to ask you to describe to our listeners, in your own words, Timeless Love, Morgenthau and Me, and what people can expect when they buy this book.
Well, there's a lot of layers, a lot of nuances. It's a political history of the nation for the last 50 years. It is a love story. It is a story about the complexities of our relationships and what we need to do to stick by our relationships, strategies for reinventing them. Bob and I were always reinventing our marriage and trying to find the person in each other that we had married in the first place, that we had fallen in love in the first place. And, I think the message of the book, which I'm told is a very good read, although I only wrote it, so how should I know? But it's very novelized, so it moves at a fast pace, and there are all these things taking place. But I would say that if there isn't one message, it's as long as you love your partner, your spouse, your loved one, stick by them no matter what, because a bad year can turn into a good year, and you can do right by them as they can do right by you and have a happy marriage.
Well, Lucinda, where can people go as far as website, maybe social media, and purchase this?
I have a website, lucindafranks.com. That's LucindaFranks.com. And in it has all the information, a lot of pictures of the family, and it has a section called Whimsies, which is really very funny, about a kind of humorous version of how I grew up in Wellesley, Massachusetts, which was a very fancy suburb, and a kind of an interview which may or may not be true between my husband and me about the book.
Well, Lucinda, I want to thank you for taking time out this evening and joining us on the show. You've lived a fantastic life, and I'm just amazed to be able to talk to you right now about it.
Well, thank you so much. If any of your listeners are in Denver, I will be speaking at the Tattered Cover on October 9th.
So all of the listeners in Denver, be there.
Good. That's good.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.